what is perimenopause?
All right. So perimenopause, when I talk about menopause and to look at it as a singular definition, it really doesn't do it justice. Perimenopause and premenopause has everything to do with time and where your body's journey is at that moment. Premenopause can actually start to happen in your 30s. Some feel like it's not until you're 45 plus, 55 plus, and then you're in your senior years, and that's where, you know, it's just a timeline difference. There's a beautiful graph that I have that I wish I could share, but I don't know how, but it really identifies where it can begin. And in your 30s, some women, they want to conceive, they want to go about having natural fertile years in their 30s. And there's actually a time period in there where they might be told stories of different diseases or conditions that their body is undergoing, causing this infertility, right? When really it might be that they're starting to walk this path of this premenopause period into this perimenopause period. And it has everything to do with symptoms. Okay, so when somebody comes in and say they're coming to me for a fertility consultation, they want to learn how to be their best self to become pregnant, I listen to the whole story, because what it has everything to do with is what are our hormones doing. So a doctor might use words like, you know, preliminary ovarian failure, all these different things, when really it's that the hormones are not where they need to be in order to have a natural rhythmic menstrual cycle, natural rhythmic ovulation. So instead of working with the body, it tends to be looked at something that is just, well, you know, maybe you're not going to have a child or be fertile, something. It's never colored very nice, right? So premenopause, perimenopause, those are timelines that happen before that age, where some of the symptoms like hot flashes, some of the other hormonal drops happen, where the LH actually goes down and some of the natural decreases in estrogen occur. So that's the section from anywhere in your 30s to really 40s, upper 40s. There's not a good definitive timeline that I can give for this, which for some, it's so frustrating for everybody, I think, as a woman. But really, we need to identify and look where your personal journey is. So once you're in the menopause zone, it's usually stated after you've had a lack of cycle for a year. You're menopausal. You're in this realm of where your fertility has indeed stopped. You're done ovulating, your menses have stopped, and now you're in menopause. So if we look at it rather than just like a start and stop point, but rather a series of doorways that you walk through and support the body in, it gets a lot less bleak, right? We can support the body in both perimenopause, menopause, and then once we are completely past through the doorway, there's another standard that states when these symptoms have stopped that you're postmenopausal. And it's almost like the body is in just a resting period in the hormones. And it oftentimes, I can't say every time, stays there, and the woman finds relief from the symptoms that were maybe turbulent during that time frame of menopause.
Awesome. Okay, that's an awesome overview. So when it comes to symptoms, I think that's what a lot of menopause is related to. Hot flashes, night sweats, mood swings, vaginal dryness, you know, all of these things that can cause severe life disruption, like not fun things. How does that look in, like, are there root causes? Are there things people can do? Or is this just how it's going to be?
So I don't love the explanation of it'll just be that way. So take your dose and go sit down, you know, that I've never really found comfort in that. So with my female clients that come in and wherever their symptoms are, that's where we start. So I'll just use an example. So somebody comes in and maybe their top symptom, because the ones you just stated out, those tend to happen all at once. And then you throw a slab of insomnia on there. And then, you know, it's like a compilation. It's not just a singular symptom oftentimes. So what I try to tell people is let's just peel back and find the root to where our body is calling out for this support, right? So I'll pick hot flashes, because this one is one that women come in often, and they can come in at 32 years old, they can come in at 60 years old and describe this process of a hot flash. And when it happens is usually at night. Some have profuse sweating when other women don't. They just feel like they're on fire on the inside. So it really comes to listening to what exactly they're saying. So I tell people we need to take care of our gut and our liver very first and foremost, because hormones do originate from this master process between the brain in that HPA. So you've got the hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis, which I'll talk about later. But then you also have this huge processing chemist, the master chemist of the body, right? That is the liver. And so we find ways to support not just the liver through foods, right? Food is our first go-to at my office. We take it very seriously, finding the best way to use these phytonutrition. They're all available all around us. It's funny because I've got about 17 words that describe food, because that really is our first medicine. So when I talk with a woman about getting to the root, we look for inflammation or inflammatory foods. We look for different spots where maybe they're bringing in, say they're on certain herbs. There are certain herbs that can actually turn up the heat in the body. And, so I take and I look at this whole overview of what she is experiencing and try to help from there. A lot really does go to that gut health and the liver health, and then how our hormones go out from there is kind of the picture, right?
Yeah, I mean, I love going to a food first approach. And I think that's so important that you brought that up. Like, gut health is a trendy topic, but it's so important, especially when it relates to our hormone health. And I think you touched on a really important thing. A doctor might, or someone might tell you, like, oh, this is just how it's going to be, but it's important not to listen. You can have relief from these symptoms, and that's really reassuring to hear.
You can. I mean, there are some that, just introducing enough essential fatty acids. I mean, I'm a total nerd when it comes to supplements and food, because if you talk about their actual, there's foods that are, supplying that phytoestrogen to the body. There's foods that are going to supply natural progesterone, like, there's all these different categories, right? So if we go in and we take a look at what the body is lacking, you can generally plug in that nutrient first and have it start to cover quite a bit of ground. And then supplements can pick up at that point where it can't go and move forward. I tell people we're not lacking a Tylenol. We don't have a Tylenol deficiency for pain. We don't have a certain pharmaceutical deficiency to sedate our body, if we can plug in the right nutrition and the right supplementation. And then, I don't know about you, but just being heard and having your stress come down about your condition, wherever that is, that alone can help women start to reduce some of these symptoms that they're having. Just supporting and hearing them and making them feel valid is another part of what I do as a naturopath.
I love that. And then, so the topic of this is maximizing menopause. So I think a lot of people, myself included, for a long time, I got really intimidated when I would go in to talk to a healthcare professional, and I didn't quite know how to ask questions or to advocate for myself. Do you have any tips for people who are experiencing menopausal symptoms and they want to go talk to their doctor about getting relief or finding natural relief, how they can approach those conversations?
That's amazing. I love that question and so much, because what I tell people is begin with the end, or begin with what result you want in mind first. Going to just a traditional, maybe Western medicine practitioner first, might give you just the traditional Western medicine answer, which sometimes isn't really going to get to that center cause of what you want. So there are beautiful MDs, DOs, and naturopathic doctors and physicians out there that this is what they specialize in, because it goes back to that. Are you going to be heard? Do they have the education to help you, right? I tell people, when you go to a conventional doctor, I don't know, you have to ask these questions, what is their background in nutrition? What is their referral status if they need to refer out to a nutritionist or something? You are allowed, and I want to empower you to ask all these questions even before you make that appointment with a traditional doctor. As far as naturopaths, you can ask the same qualifying questions. I tell women to find their voice because it is in there, and we need to listen to the body when it's whispering before it starts screaming, because it really is something that we can work on and take it step by step before it gets to a point where now her life is actually really taking a hit and not as filled with quality as what it should be. I don't believe that once we start these years, our life or our sentence has begun. It's actually a time for you to be released too. I'm a mother of 4. I have a really unique journey that has moved me through each one of these doorways a little quicker. I became, I would say, pre or perimenopausal due to surgery. Okay. So it is one of those things where I did not honor and listen to what I needed to as I walked along. And it did, in fact, require surgery to help. So I got put in these years a little bit earlier than maybe what I was supposed to. So advocating for yourself or finding someone to do it for you is really important. And there is help and success that lies way outside the surgical option.
That's awesome. And so for this, if anyone's listening and they're, not quite there yet, what are things we can do to prep? How can we, obviously knowledge is power. So now you know these things and this transition's coming. And so how can we prep our bodies for menopause, perimenopause? How can we recognize and know when to kind of talk to our doctor or find a naturopath?
Yeah. So the best thing I can advise is taking a look into your foods. And right now, one of my biggest topics that I share with people is how do we produce healthy hormones, right? So whether you're in your menstruating years, whether you're in premenopause or wherever you are, we need to look into what is going to be fuel for that process and what's going to almost be like kryptonite, right? So what I share with people right off the bat is making sure we pay attention to cholesterol, making sure we have enough healthy fat in our diet in order to produce hormones. Some people don't realize that without adequate cholesterol, we do not produce the vitamin D and process and break down and synthesize vitamin D appropriately. We don't start and regulate and stop different hormone cascades that happen in the body. It is so crucial. So when I talk to women, I always make sure they know that restriction isn't what I start with. I like to just develop this. It's like a female-friendly, hormone-friendly diet plan that just includes whole foods, natural fats, a lot of essential fatty acids. I love that you're a seed cycling company because that's really, if you think about it, okay, so it's funny because I want to just like spew everything, but let me tell
us everything.
I know, I'm like, oh, stop me. But when it comes to seeds and working with, sorry, I hope my camera's cooperating.
No, you're good.
When it comes to seeds, they hold a specialized formulation of nutrients that we can get kind of primarily only from there, the silica factor. I tell people that some of the micro minerals and micronutrients that are located in just those small, like I said, little itty bitty seeds, you grind them up and you put them in everything, right? Those alone will start to fuel that hormonal cascade in the right direction. Another thing that I tell people that when we're prepping for this this cycle change, whether it's out of menopause, you know, wherever you are, is self-love and empowerment is one of the biggest things that I love on women. Like I said, like everybody is my sister, and I tell them how valid they are, and I try to really empower them to know that we can honor each one of these doorways, whether it's just coming into womanhood and starting your first period. That's like I said, I'm in love with the whole process. And when women are starting to have these symptoms, hot flashes, maybe their libido or sex drive is going down, they start to experience this ramped up stress pattern in their relationship, maybe. These are all things that we talk about. And one of the culprits that's behind even, you know, we talk about estrogen, progesterone, all of those, they're key. But we need to focus also on the cortisol cascade, like the ramping up of the stress hormone of cortisol, adrenaline, epinephrine, right? Those are other ones that are fueled by stress. So I make sure that we talk about her in the way that's a physical form, but also we can't see stress, we just feel it, right? So we want to make sure we address her in that emotional form too, spiritual, mental, the whole person. So I say support doesn't just start with one element. It starts with really linking arms with somebody who understands your whole person and can move through this doorway with you and help plug in, you know, some of these antidotes or remedies as needed, whether it's a supplement, whether it's another change in her foods, you know, that's really key.
Cool. That is like, yes. And I think that we overlook that a lot when we're looking at hormone health is how emotional it can be. And just having support and ending a stigma around something. It's crazy. You know, we started with the period stigma, and you and I had a great conversation about this. But then I saw that menopause is actually one of the most underserved communities because no one's talking about it. And so just being able to openly have conversations about shared experiences, symptoms, it can open a whole new world of support.
Right. Well, and you nailed it. Women often are tagged as, well, when you hit menopause, you know, depression. I meet a lot of women who are on antidepressants, anti-anxieties, anti-meds once they enter that doorway of menopause, and they've been sold the idea that, again, that's just the way it is. Depression goes along with the territory. You know, this is just something we're going to put another form of sedation on, if you will. So one thing I talk with them about, as a naturopath, I don't take anybody off their medications. I don't do anything like that. But I do talk to them about, you know, why are you feeling this way? If you think about it, I don't know anybody that if you have hot flashes that keep you up all night, you wake up, your pajamas are soaked in sweat, your relationship with your partner might be suffering due to just not feeling attractive, sexy, you know, all of these different things. You know, there's a lot of different building blocks that are actually stacking up to who wouldn't feel depressed or anxious or anything like that, you know? So I make sure that we start to just kind of uncover her again and make her feel more like herself, just in a different phase of time. But really and honestly, this is sort of a forgotten section. Or there's the other, which the woman doesn't feel like she can even share her struggles or her trials. And she just has to be tough all the time. And she needs to just not be bothered by it and just keep cruising. And that alone can start to break her down and make these symptoms worse. So I am so thrilled that we're talking about it right now.
Yes. Okay. So we touched on the diet aspect and all those amazing foods to include in your diet. Is there an exercise component? Like, what should exercise look like, and how does movement fit into this?
Okay, so movement, one of the things that does creep on once we get to these, you know, menopause years is they start using words and talking about osteopenia, osteoporosis, things that are afflictions to the hard tissues of the body. Our mobilization, some women do suffer in that elasticity, right? Their flexibility goes down. Just the tissues inside the vagina alone start to kind of atrophy and become hard, right? So being that we talked about seeds, they're one of their number one components, like is silica. Silica is a mineral that is found in the earth, right? And different plants like horsetail, and I could name 15 different things that when it has silica in it and it's processed by plants, your body takes it in and it becomes bioavailable. Otherwise, we're eating like dirt and, the mineral form, which doesn't go very far. Silica is the mineral nutrient that helps us bend without breaking, okay? Bones are alive. They have blood flow. They have different tissue turnover. They're meant to be in motion. When they become hard and brittle and immobile, or stiff and, more brittle, that's when, we start to have a lot of other symptoms that come in. You can, by keeping, again, your essential fatty acids up, making sure that you're taking in lots of this silica. I love, again, and it sounds kind of like a broken record, but essential fatty acids, all of these things, then when you combine that with exercise, we can't just sit around. We need to move our bodies and have, I'm not saying go out and climb, mountains or whatever, if that's not you, but to keep moving and using, whether it's yoga, whether it's walking, something that's going to put a little bit of push and pull on those muscles. And also the bones, they get stronger when they're used, right? So I don't really recommend any specific exercise regimen, but I do tell her to keep moving and don't feel like you have to stop what you're doing. But then there's a flip side to that. I have some that work out endlessly because they're trying to lose weight, because another part of menopause is a little weight gain, right? Or maybe for some, a lot of weight gain. And so they start vigorously exercising and reducing calories and cutting out fat. Those are all components that add up to a lot more symptoms and her not maybe feeling her best. So rest is a huge component. I call it, it's almost like the peaceful exercise. How many times do we really settle into when we're tired and when we need to take that break, right? The body actually cycles in that way too. During the day, we have natural resting points that we can either ignore or we can go into.
Yes, so we've got movement, so keeping our bodies lubricated and moving, eating those essential fatty acids, making sure we've got good support system and community. The last thing I want to touch on, because this was the most empowering thing I found out in my research, was menopause is actually our body's way of protecting us. So like puberty in reverse. And it gives our body more time to focus on other things because we're not trying to focus on, that reproductive cycle every month. So could you quickly touch on, a little bit of why we go through menopause and how it's actually our body showing us some love and not our body turning on us?
Absolutely. So you said it. So during the reproductive years, right, where our body has a focus on ovulating, it has a focus on bleeding, it all takes minerals. It all takes minerals it takes minerals and hormones to blink your eyes, So there are different points in our lives that are focused on producing children, whether that's your thing. Some women, that's not their calling, and that's totally okay, but your body is focused during that time. Once you start to move into that perimenopausal shift and into menopause, your body actually needs some other life-sustaining minerals to go to different areas. Your heart, your brain, your muscles, and your bones are some of the ones that the body, almost like it takes a deep breath and it starts to turn inward and focus on you. There's a lot of different cultural aspects to menopause and different, outside of where I'm in America. I don't know how far this will reach, but in America, there's kind of, like you said, that stigma about you're just used up and you're done. But in a lot of cultures, once you enter that doorway and your focus is not on producing children of your own, you start to now do that legacy work. You now start to work on, being that wise woman, that woman that can turn in on herself. And, she holds that wisdom to then become the teacher. She's then the one that can share. So in order to do that appropriately, we have to switch focuses in our body, right? we have to, some picture the crone years, right? And you picture somebody who's bent over and crippled. And then you look at other paintings, and the wise woman or crone is just gorgeous. She's illuminated. She's, somebody who is brought to share with those next generations. So our body has what I call the fail-safe, right? We have the years that we build, and we produce children and heirs of our own, if that's our calling. And then there's the next chapter, which is actually like the enchantress, right? Where you're not quite menopausal, and you're not on the other side of menopausal, but you're in those years where you get to make change and think about yourself and really tune in to what your body needs are. So it's all very much ordained the way that this is set up. So.
Yeah, I found that so empowering, that it's your body focusing on you. And, my mom put it perfectly, like, I can't wait to go on vacation and not worry about my period anymore, or like have this like freedom. And I wish that's what I really want to change the conversation is like, this is a freedom time. This is time for you. This is your body protecting you. And, it's just a new chapter, and it's really exciting versus what our society is typically showing, which is this picture that is very opposite of what actually is true.
Yeah. And that's huge. And I'll be honest, the first vacation I went on that I didn't have to worry about my period, girl, it was fantastic. And it was really something I didn't even like focus in on. But now that like we're talking about it, I'm pretty sure I was very pleased on that. But
yeah,
and really to take care of this cycle in your life, because it's just another cycle. Sex does not have to suffer. You can have an amazing sex life. And I'm not kidding. We could take another hour and talk about just that, but it's different. It's something where her body is going to require different things. It's going to require patience. It's going to require time, and a very patient person on the other end, right? So, or herself. I tell people that it is just a shift where we have to learn to embrace where we're at. Some women gain 10 pounds, some women gain 20 pounds. I read a book where one of the first chapters that it stated, it was like, and what if this new body is just perfect for you where you are right now? Instead of trying to be your former self and fighting, what if just that 10 pounds is just your transformed body to what you need right now, right? So when I read that, I actually had to stop and I had to think. I'm like, it's true. How many times our worst person we're fighting against is us? And then if you put time in there, we're always trying to go backwards. Well, what if we just like focus right now? We focus on, this is the body that I have. I have 2 arms, 2 legs, a brain that works. I feel amazing. That all goes back to finding that root cause of viability. And that comes with finding it in yourself. If you wait for someone outside of you to tell you, let me tell you, you are amazing, and I'll tell you all these things. But sometimes that's not the message that they give us. And I'm not selling that. I'm creating a new normal.
I love that. I mean, that's been a big part of like Funkit's message is creating a new normal, and really just, we don't have to be the same person we were yesterday, but embracing this new person. And your sex life doesn't have to suck, and you can go on vacation without your period, and you've got a whole new chapter. But if you could say anything else for at the end of our time, what would be your one last message about menopause and what it brings?
Well, I said a lot to lead up to it, but one of my biggest things I like to share is do not feel like you are alone, and don't feel like you have to just suffer through it, do your time, get on the other side of it, and, don't feel that, don't buy that, right? So if I could give you that from me to you and say that there are people out there like me, I've designed a whole course about how to beautifully support your body into a natural, balanced menopause state. I think that'll be in the comments or somewhere on this recording. But really turn inward and start to look at yourself and what you need. And that will just make you be better for everybody else. So get the support, get the right doctor or physician or whomever you seek and, really know that you're worth every single penny you put in, every single, investment in time that you put into yourself. You are worth every second.
I love that. That's such an important message. Yeah, you're worth asking those questions and challenging the status quo. This isn't how it has to be. It can be this beautiful, amazing, enchantress time of life. It doesn't have to be the end.
Yeah, it's not. It's far from it. And then even when you're on your like the post menopause side, I've seen women just embrace that fully, and they're the grandmas at the beach that are like tearing it up, drinking White Claws or whatever they're doing, right? Having a ball, and whether that's not your scene or it is, everybody's got their own journey, and to make sure that you're in charge of it, right? So
Yes. I love that. It's your journey and you're totally in charge. Well, that is us wrapped up. If anyone has any questions, we can hang out for an extra minute. If not, we appreciate you spending your lunchtime with us. And